The bloody arrival. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council gleamed under the light of 1,000 stars. Holographic displays hovered above the curved tables, where representatives from over 300 species sat in tiered rows. The chamber had been designed to inspire awe, to remind every visitor that they were part of something greater than themselves, a united galaxy working toward peace and progress. Today, however, the chamber was silent. The usual diplomatic chatter had died hours ago, when Earth's delegation had entered the system. "They're approaching now," announced High Counselor Zeth Mara, her translucent tentacles rippling with anxiety. The massive viewing screen at the front of the chamber activated, showing a formation of 7 human warships entering orbit around Nexus Station. What should have been a moment of historic celebration, humanity's formal introduction to the Galactic Council, instead sent waves of unease through the assembled delegates. The human ships were battle-scarred, their hulls bearing the unmistakable marks of recent and violent combat. But it was the streaks of red that drew every alien eye. Blood, human blood, splashed across the hull of every vessel, dried and darkened, but unmistakable. "Is this some kind of ritual?" whispered Ambassador Corva of the Trill Confederation. "Do they mark their victories with the blood of their enemies?" "No," replied Xendar, the Galactic Council's foremost expert on human culture. "Humans consider blood sacred. They would never display it this way, unless they were sending a message." The chamber doors slid open. Commander Elena Rise entered, followed by 5 officers in crisp military uniforms. Unlike their ships, the humans themselves were immaculately clean, except for their hands. Every member of the human delegation had hands stained with dried blood, as if they had dipped them deliberately in crimson paint. High Counselor Zeth Mara rose, her 4 arms extended in the traditional greeting. "Commander Rise, Earth's delegation is welcome to the Galactic Council. We have awaited this moment for many cycles." Elena Rise stepped forward. Her face betrayed no emotion, but her eyes scanned the chamber with military precision. "On behalf of Earth and her colonies, I thank the Council for this invitation." "Commander," Zeth Mara continued, her voice carefully measured, "many delegates have expressed concern about the condition of your vessels and the symbolic meaning of the blood displayed on them. As this is a diplomatic gathering, the blood is not symbolic," Elena interrupted, her voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. "It is literal. My fleet engaged in combat 3 weeks ago. 42% of our personnel did not survive." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A human fleet suffering such losses should have retreated for repairs and reinforcements, not continued to a diplomatic meeting. "Against whom did you wage this battle?" asked Counselor Drav of the Utheri Dominion, his scaled face narrowing with suspicion. Elena's gaze fixed on him. "We didn't have time to clean our ships. That should tell you everything you need to know." The chamber erupted in voices. Elena stood motionless as accusations flew. "They're threatening us. This is deliberate intimidation. What did they encounter? What aren't they telling us?" High Counselor Zeth Mara raised all 4 arms for silence. "Commander Rise, while we respect Earth's sovereignty, the Council requires more information. If there is a threat to galactic peace, Earth requests 24 hours to prepare our full briefing," Elena stated flatly. "Until then, my delegation will return to our ships." Without waiting for a response, she turned and led her officers from the chamber. The doors sealed behind them with a decisive hiss. In the chaos that followed, no one noticed the small data chip that had fallen from Elena's pocket, deliberately dropped near the seat of the Krull Observer, a species known for their insatiable curiosity and inability to keep secrets. 12 hours later, Elena stood in the command center of the EA's Intrepid, Earth's flagship. The holographic display showed Nexus Station and the surrounding space, including the defensive positions taken by Council security vessels. "They've positioned warships to intercept us if we attempt to leave," reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson, his dark skin gleaming with sweat despite the ship's regulated temperature. "And they're scanning us constantly." Elena nodded. As expected. Commander, said Dr. Isabel Chen, stepping forward. The xenobiologist's lab coat was still stained with blood despite multiple attempts to clean it. The specimens are becoming more active. The containment field is holding, but energy readings are increasing. Delina's jaw tightened. How long? 36 hours, maybe less, Isabel replied. They're adapting faster than we anticipated. Elena turned to face the viewing window. Beyond the reinforced glass, Nexus Station glittered like a jewel against the void. 300 species, thousands of delegates, tens of thousands of support personnel, all unaware of what was coming. Did the Krell find the data chip? She asked. Communications Officer Patel nodded. Facial recognition confirms he retrieved it 6 hours ago. He's accessed the files twice. Good. Elena's reflection stared back at her from the viewport. A woman haunted by what she'd seen, by what she'd done, by what she might still have to do. Prepare the shuttle. I'll address the council in person. As Elena turned to leave, Lieutenant Commander Jackson caught her arm. Sir, with respect, are you sure this is the right approach? Earth authorized us to share the warning, not the technology. Elena's gaze hardened. I'm done watching people die, Marcus. Human or alien. It doesn't matter anymore what we found out there. It's coming for all of us. 3 weeks earlier, the Earth Exploration Fleet had been mapping the edges of the Outer Rim, seeking potential colony worlds beyond Council space. The region was largely unexplored, wild, unpredictable, but rich with resources. Elena stood on the bridge of the Intrepid, watching as the holographic map updated with new stellar cartography. Their mission had been peaceful: establish diplomatic contact with any intelligent species, identify habitable worlds, and expand human understanding of the galaxy. Commander, called Sensor Officer Rodriguez, we're picking up an unusual energy signature from the fourth planet. It doesn't match any known technology. Elena frowned. Natural phenomenon. Negative. It's structured, coherent, definitely artificial. Hail them, Elena ordered. Communications Officer Patel worked her console. No response on any frequency. But there's something else, some kind of subspace distortion surrounding the planet. Elena had been prepared for first contact situations. Earth had protocols, procedures honed over decades of meeting new species, but nothing prepared her for what happened next. The view screen flickered, showing the surface of the planet. Where there should have been continents and oceans, there was only a shifting silver mass, a living metal that pulsed and writhed across the entire surface. What the hell is that? Whispered Jackson. Before anyone could answer, the silver mass erupted. Thousands of metallic tendrils shot upward, coalescing into structures that rose through the atmosphere into space. Not ships, they were too organic, too fluid for that. They were extensions of the planet itself. Red alert, Elena shouted. Shields up. All vessels, defensive formation. The tendrils moved with impossible speed, reaching the nearest Earth vessel, the EA's Horizon, before it could maneuver away. The metal extensions punctured the hull like spears, then began to flow inside. Horizon is being breached, Rodriguez reported, horror evident in his voice. Elena watched, frozen, as the silver substance spread across the Horizon's hull, encasing it like a cocoon. Then came the screams over the comm channel, the crew being consumed, their bodies transformed into more of the silver material. All ships, open fire, Elena ordered. The Earth fleet unleashed their full arsenal. Particle beams, railguns, nuclear-tipped missiles, all struck the silver tendrils. Some were severed, others simply reformed. Horizon's reactor is going critical, Patel shouted. The Horizon exploded in a blinding flash, taking with it 3 of the silver tentacles. But for every one destroyed, 10 more emerged from the planet. It's a hive mind, Dr. Chen said, rushing onto the bridge. The entire planet has been consumed by a techno-organic collective. It absorbs biomass and technology, incorporating it into itself. And now it's coming for us. Elena made the hardest decision of her career. All ships, prepare to self-destruct. Set your courses directly for the planet. We're going to hit it with everything we have. Commander, Jackson protested. Our crew will die either way. Elena finished grimly. But if this thing spreads, if it reaches populated systems, everything dies, Jackson. Everything. As the fleet prepared for their suicide run, Dr. Chen grabbed Elena's arm. Wait, I might have another option. The research module, the prototype quantum disruptor. It was designed to sever subspace connections, to disrupt a hive mind. Elena realized. Can it work? Maybe, but someone would need to deliver it directly to the planet's surface. Elena stared at the silver world, its tentacles reaching toward her fleet like hungry fingers. Prepare a strike team. I'll lead it myself. The next 18 hours were a blur of blood and sacrifice. 3 ships deliberately crashed into the largest tentacles, their crews fighting to the last to buy time. The Intrepid deployed its shuttles, each carrying volunteers armed with makeshift weapons and explosive charges. Elena led the final assault, her shuttle dodging between tentacles as it plunged toward the surface. Of the 30 personnel who launched with her, only 6 would return alive. On the planet's surface, they found the heart of the hive, a pulsing silver structure that rose a kilometer into the sky. The quantum disruptor, a device no larger than a briefcase, had to be placed at its center. Cover me, Elena shouted as silver tendrils erupted from the ground around them. Her team formed a perimeter, firing constantly as she sprinted toward the structure. The silver substance caught her leg, began to climb upward. Elena screamed as it burned through her uniform, into her flesh. She could feel it in her bloodstream, trying to convert her from within. With her combat knife, she cut into her own thigh, letting the infected blood flow out onto the silver ground. Dragging herself forward, leaving a trail of blood behind her, Elena reached the heart of the hive. She activated the quantum disruptor and rolled away as silver tendrils converged on the device. The explosion wasn't physical. It was a rupture in subspace itself. The silver mass convulsed, its unified consciousness suddenly fragmented into billions of disconnected pieces. Without the hive mind to direct them, the individual components began to attack each other, to consume one another in a frenzy of self-destruction. Elena felt the presence leave her blood as the quantum field expanded. She collapsed, watching as the silver world tore itself apart. Her team found her there, half-conscious but alive. They carried her back to the shuttle, leaving bloody handprints on the walls, the controls everywhere they touched. There wasn't time to clean the blood. Not when samples of the hive mind had been collected for study. Not when long-range sensors detected similar silver worlds in distant systems. Not when they realized what this meant for the galaxy. They had to warn the Council, even if it meant arriving covered in blood. In the present, the Krell observer hurried through the corridors of Nexus Station, clutching the data chip in his clawed hand. His species prized information above all else, and this was the most valuable information he had ever possessed. The humans, he chittered to himself. They found something. Something terrible. Behind him, silently, a maintenance droid paused in its work. Its optical sensors followed the Krell, recorded his movements. Deep within its circuitry, a tiny silver filament pulsed rhythmically. The hive mind was already here, and it was waiting. The truth revealed. The Galactic Council chamber was filled beyond capacity, with delegates from every species crowding the tiered seating. Rumors had spread throughout Nexus Station, wild theories about Earth's blood-stained ships and the cryptic behavior of Commander Reyes. Some claimed humans had discovered a new weapon. Others whispered of ancient evils awakened at the galaxy's edge. None came close to the truth. Elena Reyes entered the chamber alone this time. The blood on her hands had been cleaned, but fresh bandages were visible beneath her uniform sleeve. She walked with a slight limp, evidence of her encounter with the silver world. Commander Reyes, High Counselor Zeth Mera acknowledge, her voice strained. The Council has granted your request for this emergency session. You have our undivided attention. Elena nodded, her eyes scanning the chamber. Something felt wrong. A prickling sensation at the base of her skull. She felt it before, on the Silver Planet. The feeling of being watched by countless eyes. 23 days ago, she began. Earth Fleet discovered a techno-organic collective entity in the Outer Rim. We believe it to be ancient, predating even the oldest Council species. She activated a holographic projector. Above the chamber, the image of the Silver World appeared, tendrils reaching upward like grasping fingers. This entity exists as a hive mind, capable of assimilating both organic life and technology into itself. It converts matter at the molecular level, integrating it into the collective. Elena's voice remained steady, but her hands trembled slightly. We lost 3 ships and over 800 personnel before we understood what we were facing. The chamber remained silent, all eyes fixed on the hovering Silver World. Once we identified its nature, we deployed an experimental weapon, a quantum disruptor designed to sever the connections between networked minds. The weapon was effective, but at great cost. Elena paused, swallowing hard. We brought back samples for study, contained in isolation fields, and we discovered something worse. A hologram shifted, showing multiple silver worlds scattered across a galactic map. This wasn't an isolated phenomenon. Based on subspace resonance patterns, we've identified 17 similar entities across the galaxy, all dormant, all waiting, and our engagement may have awakened them. Chaos erupted in the chamber. Delegates shouted questions, demands, accusations. Some called for immediate military action, others for quarantine of human territory. Silence. Zeth Mera's amplified voice cut through the noise. Commander Reyes, are you suggesting this threat is imminent? Elena's response was interrupted by a commotion at the chamber entrance. The Krell observer burst through the doors, his scales pale with fear. It's true, he shrieked. I've seen the evidence. The humans found a devourer of worlds. Security personnel moved to restrain him, but the Krell broke free, rushing toward Elena. Tell them what else you discovered. Tell them it's already here. Elena's blood ran cold. What do you mean, already here? The Krell thrust forward a datapad. I analyzed the quantum signature from your samples. It matches energy fluctuations detected throughout Nexus Station over the past year. Subtle, almost imperceptible, but consistent. Elena snatched the pad, reviewing the data, her face drained of color. Counselors, she said, her voice suddenly urgent. We need to evacuate the station immediately. The hive mind has already established a presence here. Preposterous, declared Counselor Draff. This is simply a human attempt to destabilize the Council. We have the most advanced security systems in the galaxy. Nothing could infiltrate. The lights flickered. Emergency sirens wailed throughout the station. Multiple breaches detected in outer sectors, announced the station's eye. Unknown contaminants spreading through maintenance systems. On the main view screen, security feeds showed corridors filling with a familiar silver substance. Maintenance droids moved in unison, their bodies partially transformed, spreading the infection wherever they went. It's happening again, Elena whispered. Then, louder. Seal the chamber. Emergency protocols. Now. Zeth Mera didn't hesitate. Security override Zeth Alpha 9. Lock down all critical systems. Massive blast doors descended around the council chamber, isolating it from the rest of the station. But everyone present knew it was only a temporary measure. How did it get here? Demanded a Vorjan delegate, his crystalline body vibrating with fear. It's been here for months, maybe years, the Krell explained, consulting Elena's data. Small amounts, dormant, waiting for a catalyst. Elena turned to him. Catalyst? What catalyst? The energy signature of your quantum disruptor, the Krell replied. When your ships entered the system, the residual quantum field activated the dormant cells. Understanding dawned on Elena's face. We didn't wake it up out there. We woke it up here. On the security feeds, station personnel fled before the advancing silver tide. Some were caught, their bodies instantly enveloped. Others fought with whatever weapons they could find, to little effect. "Commander," Zeth Mara approached Alina, desperation in her eyes. "You defeated this entity once. How do we defeat it again?" Alina met her gaze. The quantum disruptor worked because the hive mind was concentrated in one location. Here, it spread throughout the station. We'd need multiple devices, precisely synchronized. "Could we build them?" asked Exendar, the human culture expert. "Not in time," Alina replied. "But there might be another way." She tapped her communicator. "Intrepid, this is Commander Reyes. Emergency Protocol Theta 6. Acknowledge." Lieutenant Commander Jackson's voice came through clearly. "Intrepid acknowledges Theta 6. Standing by." "The sample containers," Alina said. "Can we reverse the quantum field? Make them attract rather than repel?" There was a pause as Jackson consulted with Dr. Chen. "Affirmative. The fields can be inverted, but Commander, that would draw all the hive mind fragments to our ship," Alina finished. "I know. Prepare for implementation on my command." Turning to the Council, Alina explained her plan. "Our containment fields can be modified to attract the hive mind components. We'll draw them away from the station, then detonate our reactors once we've collected enough mass." "You'll sacrifice your ships and crews," Zeth Mara stated, her voice soft with realization. Alina nodded. "Yes." "No," the High Counselor replied firmly. "Not again. Not alone." She turned to the Council Security Chief. "Prepare all Council defense vessels. They will provide escort and, if necessary, additional detonation points." Across the chamber, species that had been enemies for generations now worked together, coordinating evacuation routes, organizing defense perimeters. The Eutheri Dominion, historic rivals of humanity, offered their advanced shielding technology to protect the human ships during the operation. "Why?" Alina asked a Eutheri engineer as they modified the Intrepid's shields. "Why help us now?" The Eutheri's scaled face was solemn. "Because you came to warn us, even knowing we might blame you. You came covered in the blood of your people, who died to protect us all." Outside the sealed council chamber, the battle raged. Security forces from a dozen species fought against the spreading silver tide, buying time for evacuations. The hive mind adapted quickly, learning from each engagement, evolving new defenses. But the council learned too. Species shared technologies, tactics, vulnerabilities they had previously kept secret from each other. Antigua telepaths linked with Medusan strategic minds to coordinate defense patterns. Vorsian crystal technology amplified human weapons to penetrate the silver substance. On the Intrepid's bridge, Alina watched as the modified containment fields came online. The ship vibrated as powerful energies coursed through its systems. "Field inversion complete," reported Dr. Chen. "Ready on your command." Alina took a deep breath, looking around at her crew, at the faces of men and women who had already survived one impossible mission, who were now volunteering for another. "For Earth," she said quietly. "For everyone," Jackson replied. Alina nodded. "Activate the fields." Throughout Nexus Station, the silver substance paused in its advance. Then, like metal drawn to a magnet, it began to flow in reverse, pulling away from its victims, streaming through corridors and conduits, all moving toward the human ships in orbit. "It's working," Patil exclaimed. The Intrepid's hull groaned as silver tendrils attached themselves, spreading across the armor plating. Internal sensors showed the containment fields holding, but straining under the increasing mass. 90% capacity, Chen warned. "We need to move away from the station before detonation." Alina gave the order, and the fleet, human ships flanked by council vessels, began to pull away from Nexus Station. The silver substance followed, more and more of it gathering around the Intrepid like a deadly shroud. "Reactor overload sequence initiated," Jackson reported. 5 minutes to detonation. Elena opened a channel to the evacuation shuttles. All personnel, proceed to escape pods. This is not a drill. Commander. Jackson hadn't moved from his station. Neither had Paddle, Rodriguez, or any of the bridge crew. Someone needs to pilot the ship to a safe distance from the station. Elena looked at her officers, their determined faces, their blood-stained uniforms. They had known from the beginning this might be a one-way mission. "It's been an honor," she said simply. The minutes ticked by as the Intrepid moved further from Nexus Station, drawing the hive mind with it. Emergency pods launched from the lower decks, carrying most of the crew to safety. On the bridge, the remaining officers worked calmly, monitoring the Silver entity's response. 1 minute to detonation, Chen announced. "The hive mind is trying to access our systems. It's learning, adapting." "Let it learn this," Elena said, her voice steel. As the countdown reached 0, Elena closed her eyes. She thought of Earth, of blue oceans and green forests, of cities filled with people who would never know how close they had come to extinction. She thought of the Council species, their differences set aside in the face of a common threat. "For everyone," she whispered. The reactor detonated in a blinding flash of light. The quantum-enhanced explosion created a subspace rupture that spread outward in a sphere of energy, catching all the human ships and their Council escorts. The silver substance was instantly vaporized, the connection between its fragments permanently severed. On Nexus Station, the High Council watched in silence as the light faded, leaving only debris where a fleet had been. "They gave everything," Zeth Mara said quietly. "Twice." 1 week later, the Galactic Council convened in a temporary chamber. The station was still being decontaminated, sections sealed off where traces of the hive mind might remain. At the center of the chamber stood a single figure, Lieutenant Commander Marcus Jackson, his right arm in a sling, his face scarred from burns. One of the few survivors from the Intrepid, rescued from an escape pod after the battle. "The threat has been contained," he reported, "but not eliminated. Our scientists believe more silver worlds exist beyond Council space. More hive minds, waiting." High Councilor Zeth Mara nodded gravely. "Then we must be prepared. The Council hereby establishes a new division, the Sentinel Protocol. Its mission will be to detect and neutralize hive mind threats before they can spread." She gestured to the representatives seated around her. "All member species will contribute technology, personnel, and resources, and we ask that humanity lead this effort." Jackson looked surprised. "Ma'am, your people saw the threat first," Zeth Mara explained. "You paid the highest price to warn us, and in Commander Reyes, you showed us what true leadership looks like." The Council chamber, once filled with suspicion toward humanity, now rose in unified respect. "We came to you covered in blood," Jackson said, his voice thick with emotion. "Because we didn't have time to clean it off. Because what we had discovered was too important, too dangerous to delay. And now we understand," Zeth Mara replied. "The blood was not a threat, but a sacrifice. Not a warning, but a promise. That humanity would give everything to protect this galaxy, even before you were truly part of it." As the Council session concluded, Jackson walked to a viewport overlooking the stars. Somewhere out there, silver worlds waited, but they would not face them alone. "For everyone," he whispered, echoing Elena's final words. "For everyone."